We're going to have a great world again. But I'll tell you what, if we don't win in 24, this country is finished. I really believe that this country is finished.
I'm going to reveal some startling information about recent developments inside our administration today. You have no idea how serious this is. Should Joe Biden not be the Democratic nominee for president in 2024, would Michelle Obama, the former First Lady, succeed him?
Michelle Obama's speech last night where she said that you're in over your head and the wrong president for the country.
She was over her head, and frankly, she should have made the speech live, which she didn't do. She taped it, and it was not only taped, it was taped a long time ago. She didn't even mention the vice presidential candidate in the speech, and she gets these fawning reviews. If you gave a real review, it wouldn't be so fawning. I thought it was a very divisive speech, extremely divisive. And frankly, I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for Barack Obama. See, we're standing in the White House. I wouldn't be in the White House except for Barack Obama, because they did a bad job, Biden and Obama. And if they did a good job, I wouldn't be here. I'd be building buildings someplace and having a good time.
Some are speculating that only the former First Lady has the name, recognition, and appeal to jump in as a last-minute substitute if the president is forced out of the campaign by corruption charges, growing evidence of mental decline, and dismal approval ratings next year. One of the most respected individuals in the country, Mrs. Obama, would be a strong candidate.
Clay.
Yeah.
2 names and a winner.
All right, I'll give you a fun one. Pierce. I think it's going to be Donald Trump. I think the Democrats are going to end up drafting Michelle Obama.
Wow.
And I think it's going to be Trump versus Michelle Obama.
Wow.
And Michelle Obama finds her way into the White House.
She would be amazing. But I don't.
Shoot her into the Democratic debates. Get ready. She'll come in at the convention. I actually, Clay and I agree on this.
She would be great.
I
think she would be great. I actually think she was.
I think Biden is going to get so much worse physically.
However, the disclosures about Hunter Biden's attempt to influence people and his father's purported involvement not only damaged Joe Biden's presidency, but also put doubt on the Obama administration.
The House Oversight Committee, under its new chairman, Congressman Jamie Comer, had discovered criminal behavior after reviewing thousands of pages of the Biden family's bank records. Now, publicly, to the extent they responded at all, the White House dismissed the investigation as, of course, politically motivated. In any case, irrelevant. Hunter Biden was an adult, so his business dealings had nothing at all to do with his father, in this case, the President of the United States. Your son, while there's no ties to you, could be charged by your Department of Justice. Got that? Well, there's no tie to you. So the answer is, in fact, in the question. Whatever Hunter Biden goes down for, and we know he is going to be charged because MSNBC said so, but when that happens, that's Hunter's problem. It's got nothing to do with Joe Biden. Rest easy, America.
Michelle Obama would run on her husband's achievements and reputation, even if she were not the president. People will start to wonder very soon, when and what did President Obama know about Joe Biden's obvious corruption?
Meantime, a former Obama White House official says he wants to testify to a federal grand jury because he says he has information about then Vice President Joe Biden's role in his son Hunter's business. But he says the FBI has been ignoring him.
Former Obama stenographer Mike McCormick, you are a witness to a crime. Walk us through why you say that.
So in April 2014, I was in Air Force 2 with Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan. At the time, no one knew that Hunter Biden was already on the board of Burisma Holdings, the natural gas conglomerate from Ukraine.
Based on available information, it seems that the Obama administration, which liberals have mistakenly hailed as scandal-free, may have ignored the worst political scandal of our time. That is absurd. Numerous Biden family members received millions of dollars through a dozen shell companies.
These were targeted and specific subpoenas, and each was different based on the information we believed the banks possessed. Every one of those subpoenas returned valuable information that had been unreported and that contributed to this committee's understanding of how the Bidens conducted their businesses. The committee is concerned by the complicated, suspicious network of over 20 companies we have identified the Bidens and their associates used to enrich themselves.
Hunter paid Joe and Jill's bills. Joe met with his son's business associates. Longtime FBI informants assert that both Joe and Hunter accepted $5 million in bribes from a Ukrainian oligarch, and eyewitnesses who were once Hunter's partners have openly stated that Joe benefited from his son's transactions. Why didn't Obama halt actions that were clearly crossing moral and legal lines?
Your President Obama did not
Not my
back him.
president. The Manchurian candidate couldn't destroy us faster.
So I shamelessly say no. I want him to fail.
Headed towards socialism. They're marching us towards 1984.
Are you confident, 100% confident, that Barack Obama can do this job?
He wants to transform exceptional private enterprise America into neo-socialist Europe.
Socialism.
Socialist.
Socialism would be a real step up.
When are we going to wake up and start fighting?
These guys are Stalinists.
Who's the communist?
Obama.
Welcome to the USSA!
We do, after all, know that Hunter's activities caused concern in his White House. 4 years ago, George Kent, a career State Department official, revealed to congressional investigators in closed-door testimony that in 2015 he had alerted a senior official at the White House that Hunter Biden being on the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian natural gas company, might constitute a conflict of interest.
The very obvious concerns of corruption of Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, in Ukraine in particular. On November 13th, 2019, you testified to Congress that you had become concerned with Hunter Biden's status as a board member of the Ukrainian natural gas company, Burisma. You said you had raised those concerns to the White House in February of 2015. And in particular, what you said is, I became aware that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. Soon after that, in a briefing call with the National Security Staff of the Office of the Vice President in February of 2015, I raised my concern that Hunter Biden's status as a board member could create a perception of a conflict of interest. Tell me, why did you have this concern about, as you described, a perception of a conflict of interest?
Since Joe Biden, Obama's chosen point person on Ukraine, was scheduled to give a speech to that nation's authorities about stepping up efforts to combat corruption, Kent was concerned about Hunter's position at Burisma.
Given Hunter Biden's role in Burisma's board of directors, at some point you testified in your deposition that you expressed some concern to the vice president's office. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what did they do about that concern that you expressed?
I have no idea. I reported my concern to the office of the vice president.
Okay, and that was the end of it? Nobody?
Sir, you would have to ask people who worked in the office of the vice president during 2015.
But after you expressed the concern of a perceived conflict of interest at the least, the vice president's engagement in Ukraine didn't decrease, did it?
Correct, because the vice president was promoting U.S. policy objectives in Ukraine.
And Hunter Biden's role on the board of Burisma didn't cease, did it?
To the best of my knowledge, it didn't, and my concern was that there was the possibility of a perception of a conflict of interest.
It looks awful, no matter what's wrong with it, Mr. Kent said to the White House representative. Could Americans have predicted that their nation would find itself in this predicament in 2024? Let us address the current state of affairs in the administration and their attempts to destroy democracy. According to Kent, he was concerned that Hunter Biden would be seen by Ukrainian authorities as a tool for influencing his father.
A pervasive and long-standing problem of corruption in Ukraine included exposure to a situation involving the energy company Burisma. The primary concern of the U.S. government since 2014 was Burisma's owner, Mykola Zlochevsky, whose frozen assets abroad we had attempted to recover on Ukraine's behalf. In early 2015, I raised questions with the Deputy Prosecutor General about why the investigation of Mr. Zlochevsky had been terminated, based on our belief that prosecutors had accepted bribes to close the case. Later, I became aware that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. Soon after that, in a briefing call with the National Security Staff of the Office of the Vice President in February of 2015, I raised my concern that Hunter Biden's status as a board member could create the perception of a conflict of interests.
Ultimately, there's no other plausible explanation for Hunter Biden, who was paid $83,333 a month to serve on Burisma's board, despite having no prior experience with natural gas or Ukraine.
Ukrainians, Mr. Kent said, heard one message from us and then saw another set of behaviour with the family association with a known corrupt figure whose company was known for not playing by the rules in the oil-gas sector.
I became aware that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. Soon after that, in a briefing call with the national security staff of the Office of the Vice President in February of 2015, I raised my concern that Hunter Biden's status as a board member could create the perception of a conflict of interests.
The sum, meanwhile, was cut in half the moment Joe departed the White House and was referred to by the CEO of Burisma as the highest in the company and higher than the standard director's monthly fees. Regarding gaining favor with the then VP, a reliable FBI source has revealed that the CEO of Burisma gave $5 million to each of Hunter and Joe Biden in order to have Viktor Shokin, a Ukrainian prosecutor, looking into his business.
Hunter Biden said started working for the Burisma board at $83,000 in change per month on May 12th. Zlochevsky's envoy said, "Use your influence to combat the Ukrainian government's allegations against Burisma." George Kent from our embassy told the DOJ that Burisma paid $7 million in bribes to prosecute the investigation into bribes for gas and oil permit license. February 10, 2015, Urema replaced by Viktor Shokin.
The liberal media's Nothing to See Here faction has denied that Hunter and Joe had anything to do with Shokin's dismissal, but the fact that the prosecutor was fired and the Burisma investigation, which has been called dormant, was really closed. Furthermore, Mike McCormick, a former White House stenographer, has reported that Jake Sullivan, President Obama's deputy assistant at the time, informed reporters that one of Vice President Joe Biden's goals during his visit to Ukraine, a few days after Hunter Biden joined Burisma's board, was to obtain American funding for the nation's energy sector.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to a former White House stenographer who this month outed you as an anonymous senior administration official who briefed reporters on Air Force Two en route to Ukraine in 2014. He says that you spoke about giving aid to the Ukrainian national gas industry just days after the second son had secretly joined the board of a Ukrainian gas company. He says he considers you part of a corrupt influence peddling conspiracy. He wants to testify to a Delaware grand jury about it. Do you have a response to that? And were you part of a corrupt influence peddling operation involving the Biden family in Ukraine or any other country? No.
A few months later, Congress gave $5 million, which helped people like Burisma.
Did Joe Biden take payments from Burisma or any other foreign companies as vice president, president, or private citizen Biden?
As you may know, there is an ongoing investigation being led by the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, Mr. Weiss, appointed by President Trump in the last administration, that our Baltimore field office is working with, and I would refer you to him as to what, if anything, can be shared.
So the president is under investigation.
I'm not going to confirm or speak to who is or isn't under investigation for what. I'm simply going to tell you.
So he's not under investigation?
I didn't say that either.
Joe Biden has been accused of malfeasance by McCormick, who has also promised to appear in front of a grand jury. It is known that Hunter Biden's actions were fully known to the Obama White House.
I've left the White House, I'm writing books, and I get a hold of the Hunter Biden laptop from Marco Polo. They're a nonprofit, anti-corruption nonprofit. About a year and a half ago, I started writing a Substack based on what I find. And then I go back over what I knew happened when I was working for Joe. I found the transcript that I wrote about that briefing. That's when Jake Sullivan starts talking about fracking. And because of what I'd read in the laptop and reported in my Substack previously, I'm like, wait a minute. Joe Biden knew Hunter Biden was already on the board on April 18th. Joe Biden knew. He directed Sullivan to go back and talk to the press. This is a conspiracy. This is a crime. This is public corruption.
On May 13, 2014, after Hunter's role on the Burisma board was reported in the news, Jen Psaki, a State Department spokesperson, said that the State Department was not concerned about perceived conflicts of interest because Hunter was a private citizen, according to an article about Biden's son that appeared in the New Yorker.
I'm wondering if the State Department
has any concerns or any thoughts about the vice president's son joining the board of directors of this Ukrainian gas company.
No, he's a private citizen.
Do you consider that the Russian oligarchs who control, or the Ukrainian oligarchs who control these, they're all private citizens as well?
We certainly wouldn't put them in the same category.
No, I'm not suggesting that it should be in the same category, but I'm wondering if there are concerns from this building about the perception about how the Russians and or the Ukrainians would perceive the involvement of a son of the Vice President of the United States, especially given the situation.
No, there are not.
No. Amos Hochstein, Obama's special envoy on energy policy, reportedly expressed worries about Hunter's personal Burisma affiliation with Joe Biden. A Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs report states that Secretary of State John Kerry falsely claimed he had no knowledge about Hunter Biden's role on Burisma's board.
This is an OMB action from the Trump administration you're asking about?
Justice Department, please.
Okay. We are a new administration. We, of course, are reviewing a range of policies and charting our own path, but I don't think I'm going to have any comments on policies from a year ago from the prior administration.
The third more meaty question, if I could just follow up on a quote from the president in December. He said, quote, "My son, my family will not be involved in any business, any enterprise that is in conflict with or appears to be in conflict with where there's appropriate distance from the presidency and government." Just recently, there were reports that the president's son still owns a 10% stake in a Chinese investment firm formed with state-owned entities. Do you have an update on the divestment from that investment?
He has been working to unwind his investment, but I would certainly point you, he's a private citizen, I would point you to him or his lawyers on the outside on any update.
However, the committee states Kerry was briefed about Hunter Biden, Burisma, and his stepson, Chris Hines. The day after, Burisma announced Hunter Biden joined its board. Thus, Hunter's shady activities were known to Sullivan, Kerry, and Hochstein. Obama was probably aware of them as well. Is it the reason he supported Hillary Clinton in 2016 after failing to support Joe Biden's presidential campaign?
Top drawer staff and vast campaign wealth lost the 2016 presidential campaign. What went wrong with her second run for the White House? It's all in a new book called Shattered, which is how many of Hillary Clinton's supporters could feel after reading this book and reliving the hell of November 2016 all over again. Journalists Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes spoke with more than 100 sources throughout the Clinton campaign, providing them information about the true inside of her world. They learned that the dysfunction, infighting, and leaking that dogged Clinton's failed 2008 effort persisted again 8 years later, writing, "The campaign was an unholy mess, fraught with tangled lines of authority, petty jealousies, distorted priorities, and no sense of greater purpose. No one was in charge, and no one had figured out how to make the campaign about something bigger than Hillary."
Is Obama's lackluster support for Joe Biden in the 2020 election due to his awareness of Biden-Inky's despicable activities? There will be inquiries like this. Reporter Greg Stube, a Republican from Florida, has presented articles of impeachment against Joe Biden, alleging his corruption and obstruction of justice. The unpopular president will face increasing calls to withdraw from the 2024 contest.
Look, there's been a lot of talk about micro-targeting and the ways that candidates are going to try to reach the voters. I predict, however, one of the tried and true pieces of presidential campaigns will endure, and that there will be at least one televised debate between the Democrat and Republican presidential nominees.
Which would be standard fare.
It would be,
any
but
other
despite
year.
But
it's very much uncertain.
But it's
Yeah,
very much
very
uncertain right now, given concerns about the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates.
Yes.
And the willingness of the potential nominees
Yes.
as we currently imagine them. Yeah.
Democrats will become more desperate to find a last-minute contender who can steal the show if he waits too long. Of course, Michelle Obama is the best option. However, she too may be tarnished by the shady financial dealings of Joe Biden and Hunter.
A president has to have immunity. And the other thing is I did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong.
I mean, the bars are different for people in life. That I've learned. This is the thing about being an other. You learn how to be excellent all the time because you can't be less than. Other people can. Other people can be indicted a bunch of times and still run for office.
Don't underestimate Joe's ability to screw things up, Obama is believed to have said. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? Write about it in the comments and don't forget to watch our news clips. You might be surprised how much you didn't know.